And like many others, I'm very pleased that Baroness Stedman-Scott opened the debate in such a comprehensive way. I certainly don't envy her, however, in responding to the debate, which has been already so wide-ranging, my lords. Now, my lords, I do take part today with a somewhat heavy heart, partly because I see the suffering of the women in Ukraine who have to bear such a heavy burden in facing the onslaught of a vicious Russian invasion, whether they stay or flee their homeland. But I too, like the noble Lord Farmer, salute the courage of Russian TV news editor Marina Olsvyakonikova and, of course, celebrate the wonderful news of Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe coming home. And I celebrate the growing recognition, too, of the achievements of women in the digital policy space, which I speak on frequently. But, my lords, more broadly, contrary to expectations, there has been a deterioration in women's rights and condition in this country, in many ways. I was a teenager in the 60s, and it seemed then that growing equality of treatment in all walks of life and respect for women's rights would lead to a better society. In so many areas, I fear this is not the case. As Refuge say in their briefing, women and girls in the UK continue to face appalling levels of violence. More than 1 in 4 women in England and Wales, aged 16 to 74, experience domestic abuse at some point in their lives, and an average of 2 women a week are killed by their partner or ex-partner, a statistic which has not changed in decades. Women's Aid highlight the fact that 60 to 70% of women accessing mental health services have experienced domestic abuse. As Refuge also say, technology is increasingly being weaponized by perpetrators of domestic abuse to harass, stalk, and abuse survivors. Technology-facilitated domestic abuse or tech abuse has a devastating impact on both mental health and physical safety. Today's online safety bill, published today, will be judged not only whether it protects children, but also women from this kind of abuse. And then rape charges and convictions are at a minuscule level. Home Office crime figures show 56,152 alleged rapes in the year to September 2020, but analysis showed just 1.5% of reported cases produced a charge. The Victims Commissioner for England and Wales, Dame Vera Baird, said, "If you're raped in Britain today, your chances of seeing justice are slim. Even though police are now referring more and more cases to the CPS, we have seen a catastrophic fall in rape convictions. The latest data," she went on, "shows just 1.5% of cases result in a charge. That means that more than 98% of cases do not reach court. This is shameful and has a real and profound consequence for victims up and down the country." And, my lords, the drop in prosecutions has led to fewer convictions. There were 1,074 rapists convicted in the year to December 2020, a record low and a decline of 64% from the 2,991 convictions in 2016. In criminal justice, we've had equivocation about the status of misogynistic abuse and misogynistic conduct as a criminal offence, as we heard so cogently from the noble Baroness Kennedy. In healthcare, the forward of Dame Claire Gerarda to public policy projects, a women's health agenda, redressing the balance, is damning. She says, "It is my personal feeling that women have no more rights regarding their bodies and healthcare than when I was born 62 years ago. As a GP of over 40 years, I've treated thousands of women. However, throughout the process of crafting this report, I've been shocked to learn that many of the medical interventions and procedures held up by institutions and policymakers are not in place for the good of women's health, but serve to prevent women from being in control of their own bodies. Single-sex wards are under threat, as we have discussed during the passage of the health bill last night. My lords, as a Clapham resident, I was shocked by the policing of the Sarah Everard vigil, the complacency of the outgoing commissioner, and the report of the police inspectorate. And I'm pleased by the outcome of the recent High Court case brought by the organisers Jessica Lee, Anna Burley, Henna Shah and Jamie Klingler. And all that brings me, my lords, onto freedom of speech, which is meant to be so dear to us in this country, and in particular my own party, and which has given the publication today of the online safety bill and the response to the Joint Select Committee on which I sat, which is highly topical. My Lords, I've never been trolled or piled on, my Lords, but when I see those who engage in legitimate discussion of sex-based rights, such as Kathleen Stock, Maya Forstater, J.K. Rowling and Baroness Faulkner, and others in my own party, cancelled or insulted or moderated out, then I despair. Where does this lead? Can we, for instance, not talk about the concerns raised by the CAS review, the independent review of gender identity services for children and young people, for fear of giving offence? My Lords, a few facts from CAS which we must talk about. The number of children and young people being referred to GIDS has increased dramatically in just over a decade, from approximately 50 referrals per year in 2009 to 2,500 in 2020, with a waiting list of 4,600. And the large majority of these referrals, my Lords, are now for what are called birth-registered females in the report, presenting in their early teens. In 2009, girls made up 1/3 of referrals to GIDS. In 2016, they made up over 2/3. My Lords, I've long worked in the autism field, and it is notable that around 1/3 of the children and young people referred to GIDS have autism or other types of neurodiversity. In the population as a whole, the percentage of people with autism is approximately 1%. My Lords, if we're going to be able to genuinely celebrate women's achievements and advance their rights, then it is vital that we're able to hold a conversation that is civilised and respectful. But we must all be allowed to express our genuine beliefs, or indeed facts, without fear of censorship or abuse.